Sometimes I'll be watching a movie or a TV show and I'll hear an explosion or a car by or some sort of impact or whoosh or like whatever it is that just sounds horrifying or violent or visceral in a way that's sometimes hard to describe. And you think, how did they record that? Like, how did they wind up with that? Now, obviously, there are many ways to go about creating those sorts of sounds that sound gritty and they've just got this violent texture is kind of the best way that I can describe it. And if you stick around through this video, I'm going to be teaching you one of the most classic Hollywood tricks to getting that sort of aggression out of your sounds. What's up everybody? My name is Matt Yoakum and welcome to MYSOUND. This video today is sponsored by Pro Sound Effects, so huge thank you to them. They've just released their Core 7 library bundle, which has thousands of sounds in it, curated from top sound designers in the industry. You have to go check out their collections. They're amazingly well put together, the metadata is incredible, and their sounds have lots of character in them, which is exactly what we want when we are designing sounds for TV and film or games. Now, I'm going to make this super brief, but I'm just going to ask up front, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out and it helps me bring more content like this to you. So I promise to stop annoying you with that. Now I'm just going to dive straight into it. Today's topic is about how to get that visceral aggression that I talked about at the beginning out of your sound design. And one of the most classic Hollywood tricks that there is in sound design is to use animal sounds in your effects for things that are completely unrelated to animals. I'm going to be walking through a handful of examples here on just some of the ways that you can use animal recordings to add this sort of aggressive, gritty quality to your recordings. Not just aggressive and gritty, but also tonal elements as well. The thing about animal recordings that are so amazing is that A, they're organic, meaning they are imperfect, they have randomness in them, they evolve over time, and we have obviously such a wide variety of animals on this planet that make such incredible variety of vocalizations. From squeaks and squawks to roars, snarls, growls, screeches, whatever you can imagine, animals make some pretty insane sounds, and they make really cool design elements when they are layered properly into other non-organic material to give them this like sense of life that's hard to achieve in any other way. So I think it's better if I just show you what I'm talking about instead of describing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. So here we are in Pro Tools, and this is a classic use case for how to use animal vocalizations to beef something up and to make it feel more aggressive. So right here, I have this Dodge Ram recording. This is the Dodge Ram 3500 library from Richard King. It's a nice sounding recording, but I think it could use an extra something. So here it is by itself. So I'm going to do just a couple of things to this recording before I start bringing in other material. So I'm going to start by using Pro Q4. I'm going to use RX Connect as well here, just to get rid of this click that happens in the ignition, just because I don't want that there. Really quick, just a shout out to iZotope. RX is an incredible tool, not just for dialogue editing, but also for cleaning up sound effects. And I use it all the time for that. So I'll do a tutorial on this later. I already know how I'm going to clean this up, so I'm just going to do this quickly, get rid of that click. That should solve our problem. I'm going to send it back, hit render, and now that click is gone. So now it sounds like this. And I'm actually going to do this on the insert. I'll put it in touch latch mode. Open up Pro Q4. I'm going to go into preview mode. Give just a bit more low end. After taming just a little bit of these highs. And that sounds pretty good to me. So I'm just going to write that automation. I have a keyboard shortcut set up for that. So what I really want to emphasize here is this ignition startup sound. I want this to sound like this is a bad guy's truck. They've just started it up and this thing needs to sound aggressive and evil. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to flip over to Sound Miner. And I've got my Pro Sound Effects libraries. I've got my Pro Sound Effects libraries isolated here. I'm going to lock so that we're only searching within Pro Sound Effects. And I'm going to look for a gator sound. They've got a gators library, which were recorded by Colin Hart and Noel DeMarco. And there are some really nice high quality sounds in here. So let's just listen through some of them and see what we find. That's entirely low end hydrophone. I'm going to look for something above water. I mean, that's pretty amazing right out of the gate. That sounds like how I would imagine a dinosaur sounds. And it's definitely got that sort of nice, gritty top-end texture. Gators make these incredible guttural growls. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up pitch and time. And I'm just going to speed this up a little bit with the voice algorithm. So it goes a little bit faster, and I can always edit it as well if I need to. Okay, so let's see what this sounds like. You know, I may leave it longer, actually. And then just fade out of it a little sooner. Before this settles down into its idle. Now, I would probably layer something else into the idle to sort of match the quality of this gator roar, but that's already adding some nice aggression to it. There's a bit of a click at the head of this file. I don't want to clean it up right now, so I'm just going to edit that out. And that sounds pretty good. I'm going to take down just a bit of the highs. And that sounds pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to do one more layer. Let's get a lion roar. And let's go down. Let's see. King Collection's got some. You know, that's pretty diesel-y sounding, actually. It's definitely more of a vintagey vibe, but I can EQ this to make it sound a little more present. Because I like the tonality in it. Just give it a healthy dose of low end. Pull out some of these mids. There's sort of this crispy high thing over here that's not helping us. I actually think maybe something more like this. So that's interesting. Let's see how that feels. And then I may actually try to extend this. I'm just going to leave this open because I tend to reach for this a lot. So I'm going to extend it. That's starting to sound good. Let me see if I can find something a little more visceral. There are some leopard recordings in here. Let's see. Anne Krober has some in Anne's Animals. That's cool. I wonder what that feels like. Let's bring that in stereo. Now, this is starting to sound cool. The only thing is it's like pretty apparent that there's basically just a roar on top of the diesel engine itself. So what I would probably do to make this sort of bed a little bit better together is I would find another diesel, like an actual engine rev, and blend that in. But I just want to give you a sense of the before and after. So here it is without any of these files. Like it's already a great sounding engine recording, but this stuff just really amps it up to the next level and gives it sort of a cinematic feel that maybe like a villain would be using this vehicle. Like maybe the roar need to be brought down a little bit. Like that's sounding cool. I could play with the balance all day on this and get it just right. This is the sort of thing I would spend quite a bit of time on. And again, I would be incorporating other elements, maybe like another engine rev or something to really help it all mesh. But I think you get the idea. So moving on to our next example, this is probably one of the first ways I ever thought or learned to enhance a recording with an animal recording, and that is in fire whooshes. So here's these recordings. So these are from the Pro Sound Effects General Collection. I believe it's Volume 1. And these are both from Blackguard SMG. So I've pulled 2 files here. Here's the first one. It's got a nice phasey sort of tonal top to it. And then this file down here is sort of your traditional sort of fire whoosh. Now what I'll probably do is bring up uber loud and set this to 3-band, and I'm just gonna beef this thing up quite a bit. That sounds pretty good to me. I'm also gonna declick the head of this. Okay, so now it sounds like this, which is already pretty good sounding. But let's do one of the most classic combinations there is, and that is to combine a tiger roar with a fire whoosh. So let's look for tiger. And my buddy and fellow sound designer Chris Diebold has this fantastic library on Pro Sound Effects called Bengal Tire, and he's got some really well recorded and well processed sounds in here. So let's take a look, listen to some of these. That could have probably gone great in our diesel engine as well. All right. So this isn't the traditional roar that I was looking for, but this sounds great. It's got that kind of Doppler bi quality to it. So let's layer this in. And then without even auditioning it, I'm just going to jump to, and we're going to look for tiger roar specifically. So this is the sort of perfect quintessential tiger roar from Anne's Animals here again, from Anne Krober. It's in stereo, so I'm going to layer that here underneath. And let's see what this feels like. Okay, so I'd probably cut the tail short so it doesn't become apparent that we're just left with an animal. Turn these down a little bit. I did turn this up with uber loud, so I'm going to compensate by lowering it. Turn this back up a bit. It's all about the balance. You want the animal recordings to enhance and sweeten, but not necessarily to take over the character of whatever it is that you're creating. So let's remove the animals from this and add them back in. I actually think they're probably not enhancing enough here, so let me just bring them back to Unity. It's a little better. It's all about working with headroom, right? The thing is, if everything is loud, it's all going to just mush together and your loudest element is just going to win. So I want there to be a balance. So that's why I'm lowering these original fire elements, because they were already pretty hyped up, especially since I ran this lower one through uber loud. So that's sounding a little better. So here it is without and with. That's good. Now let's add one more thing in here, maybe something that might be a little more unexpected, but what I think this needs is a cool tonal element, like a tonal buy. So let's search for hawk scream. All right, let's grab this. This is from the Wild Voices library. So let's hear this. I'm gonna just tame this a little bit. Let's hear it one more time. So what I'll probably do is cut off the head here and use the tail. It almost sounds like a bottle rocket or like a firework, which is cool because it's going to be something that we already associate with sort of a fiery sound. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this up just by holding Option and dragging. I'm going to click this bottom one. I'm going to lower it by an octave. Let's see how this sounds. So that's cool. Together. And then I'm going to just shape these where I'm going to be doing hard in and hard out. Maybe change the shape of it so it comes in a little earlier, goes out a little sooner. Now what I could do that might be cool, let's just see an experiment here. I'm going to open up reverse here, and I'm going to reverse these so they sound like this, which also makes for a really cool sort of build-up sound. I would probably use that for like an incoming missile or something. And then I'm going to do this to kind of create essentially like a Doppler buy. So together they sound like this. Okay, and then I'm going to double time this. So it sounds like this. All right, now we're getting more of that sort of Doppler move. Speed it up again. Now let's hear that in the context of all these. So not bad. I'm actually curious. I'm just going to undo it and see what it would have been like a little longer. So that's actually pretty cool. I just like the tonal quality it gives on top. It makes it feel a little more aggressive, a little more stylized for sure. And so what I would do is I would get like a longer fire whoosh. Like I would probably do the same thing here where I would reverse this. And maybe do the same to this. Actually, I might just try to lengthen this one. And see how this feels. Probably tuck this in a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna remove my animal elements. Here we are just by themselves. The fire whoosh. Now with the animal elements. Sounds a little bit cooler. All right, next example. Moving right along. So here we go. This is an airplane buy. This is from the new Alan Howarth collection, which is found in the new Core 7 release from Pro Sound Effects. That's just a really cool recording. It's got this great mid-range to it. You can feel the power of the engine buy. It's got a big tonal shift. Super cool sound. So let's try something just for fun. I'm going to open up Snap Heap. You guys may recognize a recurring theme on this channel with how often I use this to process stuff. And I'm going to put flanger on it and maybe a little bit of chorus just to give it some fun movement. Let's see what this feels like. Okay, so actually let me duplicate this down so we have the original. I'm gonna process it one more time. Versus the Now, I may take the original here and just do an octave down. The idea here is I'm just going to kind of do like a really cheap, quick spaceship sound by. So I'm going to lower this by an octave underneath it. That gives it kind of a powerful sound. Now, maybe one thing I could do here, especially with the low end, is I love this tool called LFO tool. Just set this to a sine wave. I love this tool for just adding really quick amplitude LFO to basically anything. So let's see what this sounds like. That's cool. Gives it kind of a chuggy engine feel. All right, so that already just sort of feels a little bit like a sci-fi something. Okay, so now let's do another classic use of an animal vocal to create a spaceship by. I'm going to be searching for an elephant vocal. Okay, let's see what we got. I don't know if that sounds sort of familiar to a classic, specific, large franchise that has to do with wars in the stars, but this is a very cool recording. I love that it's not perfect. It sounds vintage and it's got lots of grit and distortion on it. Let's shape this in. This is definitely going to be one of our elements. I'm going to shorten it. And then let's go hunting for one more layer. These are cool too. I'm going to lower this in pitch. That's super cool. So this is a mono file. Let's grab it. I'm just going to duplicate this into a stereo file. So now it's dual mono. And let's try something. I'm going to duplicate it again, mute it, and then I'm going to open up an insert here for Tonsturm's Spin Tracer. And what I like about Spin Tracer is it allows me to basically just click and drag this manually, which is pretty fun. So I can basically automate the Doppler just by clicking and dragging. So what I'm going to do is allow it to be a little faster so that it follows my mouse and doesn't drag behind as much, maybe a little bit. That looks about right. And then let's actually, I'm going to duplicate this a bunch of times. Here's a shortcut for you. Command D will duplicate the clip to the length of your selection. So that way I can do this Doppler several times. Let's just try this. So now I've got several variations of these Dopplers. I can commit. Okay. And now I've got a bunch to choose from. Really easy and simple like that. So I can delete these top ones because I've still got the original preserved down here. I'm going to get rid of the Spin Tracer plugin now. And then let's see how these fit in. Here's sort of a longer one. Let's see how this goes. And then we're going to just do a fade in on our Ann Krober recording up here. And fade out. Something like the length of the one that we've got. Let's just see how this sounds. It will probably need refining, but that's okay. Let's do this. Let's open this up And I'm going to duplicate this down again and mute it. My purpose for doing this is just that once I process something, especially with Audio Suite, I want to just be able to get back to it really fast. So what I'm going to do here actually is to consolidate this clip. I was going to render it with LFO tool again, but I would have to find the exact hertz that I used, and I didn't think to keep it open, which I should have done. But what I'm going to essentially do here is I'm going to match the envelope of this signal here, this low bass element. Let me solo it again. I'm going to match the envelope of it just by using clip gain. For those of you who don't know, with clip gain, if you hold command, you can add breakpoints and then let go of command. This little pointer will come up when you hover over them, and you can pull them down. Okay. And the reason I'm doing this is because when you match the envelope between two different signals, it immediately makes them feel as if they live in relation to one another. So what happens is, like, if I've got this LFO tail and it's essentially making this shape, and then I have another signal underneath it that's just holding steady with no modulation, they sound like two different elements from two different things or two different places. Now, this isn't always the case, but it is sort of just a good general rule of thumb to consider when you're making a design. By matching the envelope between different elements, it immediately makes it feel like it's coming from a common source, like it's feeding from or through the same thing. So just by doing a rudimentary sort of processing here to make it match, let's see what this feels like. I mean, that really works, I think. It sounds pretty cool. Now I've just cut off this tail a little shorter so they just sort of match. That's a spaceship bite. We basically took a fighter jet, we ran it through a bit of chorus and flanger, and then we added in these elephant roars, which have these great tonal, gritty quality to them. So let's mute the modulated stuff. So here's just, the original recording, but through chorus. Then we added the LFO. And then with the elephants. It just makes it feel like it's got life and tone and character. Okay, last example. Here we go. This is an explosion. I've pulled from two sources, one of them from Odyssey Library by Mark Mangini and Richard Anderson, and the other one is a Dave Whitehead collection, Explosion, which is brand new to Core 7 as well. So here are them together. Okay, so here's just the top layer. This is sort of a rocket launcher sound from the Dave Whitehead collection. So it has a bit of a transient at the head. I just edited the tail to be how I wanted it. But it's got this nice sort of flangey high mid-range sustain that happens. And then here is an explosion from Mark Mangini and Richard Anderson's Odyssey collection. It's got a nice crack to it. I'm going to turn these both down just a little bit so we're not clipping. I'm going to roll off just a bit of the top end in this one. Oh, look, it was already there. Bit of top end there. Bit of a low end bump. May do the same. Pull on just a tad of the top end. That sounds pretty cool. Now, let's combine two different elements here. Let's go back for another tiger roar. This is from the Richard King collection. I want to make sure that I'm basically lining up the head of the roar with this explosion here. Roll off just a bit of the top end of the tiger. I want this kind of like mid-range that the tiger brings to live. So here it is without. And with. Okay. And let's go for one more bird screech. So this might sound a little crazy, but let's just try something. I'm curious. I'm going to run this through Supertone Clear. Even though this is a dialogue cleanup plugin, I'm actually going to use it to reduce the reverb. Let's do it again. So it definitely dried it up a bit. I just want to see. This may be slightly goofy. Maybe it won't work, but it's worth a shot. I'm going to bring this down an octave. Let's make sure it's in touch latch. Oh, this is a committed track. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to bring this down. And let's see what it feels like to actually just have this lower in pitch. And then let's stretch it a lot. Let's like double the length of it. Maybe even a little bit lower. So I think that starts to work well, except for that tonal element here, like this thing. So let's try this. Just do this again. I'm going to use the original signal. You know what? Let's just try something crazy. Let's open up Altiverb. Okay, let's open up. And there are some pretty cool designy reverbs. In particular, I actually like this cooling tower one, which is a bit insane. I'm just going to process the back part of the file here, which will leave the original dry signal intact for me to blend into the tail. So this thing's got a really long tail to it, but let's see what this feels like. So it's unique sounding for sure. The tonal element throws me a bit. So what I would probably do is open up RX Connect one more time, send it. Here's my tonal element right here. I'm going to use what is called spectral repair, attenuation in vertical mode. Again, I'll do a video on this. I'm going to do some clip gain down. Basically just attenuating some of the more tonal elements. This is going to be a little less tonal on the tail now. So let's see what this feels like. That's pretty cool. Probably just do a shorter tail. Give a little bit more to the tiger growl. So again, here is just our two original explosion sounds. And here it is with the animal layers layered in. Okay, so I made the tiger growl too loud again. Let's just bring that back down. And there we have it. So I hope this gave you just a little bit of an insight into some ways that you can use animal recordings in ways that you may not have thought of in the past. Animals, as you could hopefully hear in these demonstrations, just offer this really rich texture and variety of timbre which can bring qualities that feel cinematic to our sounds by making them larger than life. We're essentially taking a living, breathing, organic thing and injecting it into something inanimate or something that needs to feel like it's got more movement to it, but needs to sound more than just what it is on its own. So a fire whoosh sounds like a fire whoosh, but when you add some tonal elements to it and the sort of guttural nature of a tiger roar, it suddenly becomes this larger cinematic thing. And what's nice about this is that we've actually been conditioned as audience members, as listeners, for decades now to hear these sorts of sounds and to associate them with cinema. When you hear these sorts of sounds, your brain doesn't dissociate and think that's not a natural sound. It's because of the legacy of generations of sound designers that have come before us that we're able to use these tools, because our audience has already learned that anything is possible within the world of cinematic sound. And as long as you're creating things that feel cohesive and like they gel, both in terms of amplitude and envelope and frequency range, if you're thinking of these things, you can create some really cool sonic elements that will make your projects feel cinematic. So thank you again so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this. Thank you so much to Pro Sound Effects for sponsoring this video. Please check out their libraries. As you can see, there are tons of amazing resources within them. I don't know how you could watch this and not feel envious of having some of these sounds, so be sure to go check that out on their website. Do me a big favor, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave a comment down below what sorts of ways that you've been able to incorporate animal sounds into your sound design. I'd love to hear about it, and I'll see you on the next one.